Welcome to Bridging the Generation Podcast. I'm your host, Malak Arif, and today I got a very, very, very special guest. Matter of fact, I got two guests, but today we about to focus on this legend. I've been a fan of this brother for 30 years since I was a kid. I remember seeing his vinyls in my aunts and uncles and parents' basements, and to hear his music through numerous rap artists throughout the years, man, and just to realize and appreciate all the great music that he has contributed to the culture, man. It is an honor to introduce the one, the only Dexter Wansel. What's going on, brother?
Hey, thanks, Malak, for having me.
No doubt. And also today I gotta introduce the one, the only, the infamous Cam Jones, man.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you for bringing me up, man. It's really an honor
no
to
doubt,
be,
brother. This is legendary. Because we got what they call it, 6 degrees of separation.
Yes, sir.
There's a little 6 degrees of separation going on over here.
Absolutely.
As if folks who may not know, Cam Jones is the son of the legendary lead singer of the Jones Girls, Shirley Jones. So Shirley Jones also was a label mate of Dexter Wansel at Philadelphia International. We're gonna get into all of that. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. Mr. Wansel, you're looking good, brother. How have you been maintaining throughout this whole pandemic? I gotta ask a lot of my guests that, man, because it's really crazy, man. So I'm just want to see how you've been maintaining, brother.
Well, I've been maintaining. It's been pretty rough as far as performances and getting together with groups and stuff. I was in London and Paris that February when it first hit back in 2019, and 2020. Yeah, 2020, and when we got home on the 14th of February, that's when things started shutting down, and a lot of gigs that I had after that had gotten canceled because of the pandemic. Unfortunately, it really has affected just about all aspects of creative society, grouping together and doing things and having shows and being in the studio, and it's really been tough.
No doubt, man. Hey, Cam, man, like I said, you've been also out here, doing your thing, man. Like, how have you been maintaining, man, especially as an independent artist, man?
Hey, man, to piggyback on Uncle Dex, man, it's been rough, man. I feel like we are just making adjustments. This kind of hit us from left field, and I feel like we didn't expect it to last this long. So I feel like we just all adapting in the new time, and what's going on with COVID, and just trying to stay safe as much as possible, man. But I'm just adapting to more of a virtual world, getting out when I can, and making sure I'm sanitizing and all that good stuff, man. Trying to stay clean.
No doubt. Well, look, hey Dexter, I know we don't have a lot of time, man, but I want to talk a little. I've done my research on you, throughout the years. It's not no last minute thing. Like I said, I've been studying you for a long time. So I want to talk about, I want to go back, take me back to a young Dexter Wansel, 12, 13, 14 years old. When did you, started to develop this? When did you start to realize that you have this talent for music? When did you realize, like, this is something that I want to take seriously? What age was that? I just put out a number. I could be wrong, but, can you take me back to that time?
Actually, it was, I used to be a little errand boy at the Uptown Theater in Philadelphia, and the music director there showed me some chords on the organ, and I would, after he would get up and walk away, I would, kind of figure out my own stuff, No doubt. And I knew then, I was 8, 9 years old then, that I wanted to pursue music, and Doc Bagby was my first mentor back in 58, 59.
Okay. So what was the music scene like back in Philadelphia? A lot of us may not remember. I know you had the Cameo Parkway. That was pretty big. But what were some of the influences that you had growing up?
Well, the influences that I really had was, like I said, my errand boy years at the Uptown Theater. The Uptown was a lot like the Apollo in New York, or the Regal in Chicago, and so on and so forth.
Like the Black Chillin'
Fox in DC, where black artists could come, and not just for 2 or 3 days, but from anywhere from 10 to 14 days, and settle in and do shows every night, and 3 shows on a Saturday, including a midnight show. That's where I learned, working with the bands. I worked the first Motortown review, which the star of that review was, of course, James Brown and the Famous Flames. And they, I'm sorry, that's the King Records tour. I'm sorry, the King Records tour. The big name was James Brown and the Famous Flames, but for the first Motortown review, they had the original Funk Brothers were the band for that first Motortown review, and the Supremes and Little Stevie Wonder. I would hold his hand back in the wings until Shorty Long brought him out, put him behind the drums, And all those experiences through the years there at the Uptown is really what developed me as far as wanting to be a musician and finding an instrument, other than organ or keyboards that I really liked, and listening to the stories that a lot of the musicians would tell about their journeys, like out of the South, and like at that time, Philadelphia was segregated. They couldn't stay in the hotels downtown. So there were like little venues that they would be able to stay at, houses they would be able to stay at near the Uptown. And they dealt with that, and they used to tell, Dizzy Gillespie always told stories about his experiences, as a jazz cat, coming up through the speakeasies and the clubs and stuff, developing that music, and I learned a lot that way. Being at the Uptown, and I learned a lot from so many different artists there. Dave Babe Cortez showed me stuff on the organ, and along with Doc Bagby, and I was able to develop that as the years went by, and picked up playing piano. And when I got into the Army, I used to play at the USO shows wherever I was located, and that's really how it all got started.
Okay. Now what about the organ, the piano that intrigued you? Out of all the different instruments, you could have played drums, you could have played, bass guitar, horn section. What was it about me? Because when we think of Dexter Wansel, we think of keyboards. We think of one of the greatest keyboardists, arrangers, man, in R&B history. Some of your arrangements, some of the music that you have put out, man, on those PIR albums, man, it's just phenomenal, man. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, really where it started was when I was in elementary school and junior high school. I started playing the cello.
Okay.
And I got really good at playing the cello in the 6th, 7th, 8th grades. And so they sent me to the Settlement Music School, where not only did I study the cello, but they had me studying theory, harmony, and composition.
Now, was that in Philadelphia?
I had to learn about all the instrumentation. That's how I became an arranger.
Now, Mr. Wansel, I hate to interrupt. Was that in Philadelphia?
Yeah, in Philadelphia. Yeah.
Okay.
And I used to take master classes on the cello. And then when I got in junior high school, I kind of was playing the cello, and me and my best friend, we started our own little band called my best friend Stanley Clark, the bass player. We started our own little band.
Oh, hold on, time out. You just threw that name out there, just
legendary
like folks who don't know, Stanley Clark is arguably one of the greatest jazz fusion bassist ever. Was a founding member of Return to Forever, great solo career. He did a lot of great soundtracks and scores. So it's, I'm not gonna let you just throw Stanley Clark out there.
He's done 69 films to date.
Exactly.
Man, listen.
No doubt. And I forget he's from Philadelphia. I forget that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So we started our own little group called the Speakers, and we would play around town and in high school and after high school. And then I wound up having to go into the service. The day I turned 17, I was on a train to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and that's another story. And
now did you get drafted?
No, it's a long story. But anyway, so
Mr. Wansel, you was trying to flee the country, man. Hey, Mr. Wansel, what you was getting involved in, brother?
And it was either go to juvie or go into the Army. And I chose going into the Army.
Hey, I know a couple of brothers that had to make that business decision. I myself, like I don't know if I ever shared this with Cam, but I served in the military for 5 years myself.
Oh, wonderful!
Oh,
Which branch?
Yeah.
What branch?
That's what's up, bro.
Army.
Army. So was I.
That's what took me down to Georgia. That's how I ended up going. My last duty station was at Fort McPherson.
Okay.
Fort McPherson,
Which is now Tyler Perry's studio. But enough about me. Finish, Mr. Wansel. I'm sorry.
So where were we?
No, we was talking about, so you end up going to the military. You said you ended up fleeing the country.
I wound up going to being sent to Taiwan because at first they were going to send me over to Vietnam, but I was still 17.
Okay.
And, and what's funny is I met a lot of guys over there that really that falsified their birth certificates to get into the service. There were guys over there that were 15 and 16.
What?
Yeah. To get into the service.
Why the hell? What the hell was they? I mean, life had to be hell for you to leave the States and go over to get killed in Vietnam.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But in some places, it's not easy. Not easy for us. But anyway, I wound up in Taipei, Taiwan, and Taichung and Tainan, where I became. I worked in communications and intelligence, and when I got out the service, I used to go to Sigma Sound in Philadelphia and try to audition for sessions. This was back in 1970, 71. And finally, one day, somebody asked me if I knew something about a Putney synthesizer, and I said, sure. I didn't, but I figured it out.
I don't think they weren't using those type of instruments, they weren't. I don't think Philadelphia International were using those type of instruments early on. I know Mr. Huck, he did a lot of the piano work early.
Yeah, nobody was using synthesis. I started doing synthesis sessions, credited and uncredited. And then I met Al Pearlman, the guy that created the ARP synthesizer, and he gave me an ARP 2600V that I started using on all my sessions. Once I, became a member of Yellow Sunshine, I started, using it for sessions that we played on, and then from then I started playing with MFSB live. The next thing I knew, I was asked to write, this was in 74, to write some songs, which I did for Billy Paul and MFSB, and that's how I got signed at PIR.
Okay, so let's run it back. Because you mentioned Yellow Sunshine. Yellow Sunshine. That's a classic. A lot of people may not know, man. If you can find that Yellow Sunshine album with you guys with them. The yellow hats and the plaid, the white and yellow plaid pants on. I don't know what you guys was thinking, man. But if anybody can find that album is worth a lot of money.
At the same time, I was a member of Instant Funk.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I had no idea. Little arrangements when we were signed at PIR and.
So hold on. Let's go back. Let's go back. See, now I'm about to go into music nerd mode. These type of interviews, it gets a little personal because I'm a huge PIR, as you guys can see, a huge PIR fan. So, how did you? Yes, sir. So, how did you guys put together Yellow Sunshine? Because a lot of people don't know a lot of the guys that came from, well, I'm not going to say a lot of the guys, but some of the guys that came from Yellow Sunshine end up going into MFSB. So how did you guys put that together?
Actually, Carl and Roland Chambers were actually members of MFSB when they started forming Yellow Sunshine back in '72. And they heard me during a session and asked me to join. And Mighty Mick, the conga player, heard me at a club too and said, well, you know, I know these guys from MFSB and they're interested in you and would you mind, you know, joining the group? And I said, sure. And I became a member of, we only did the one album.
Yeah, just one album, okay.
Yeah, and because then after that, I kind of moved on. And me and T Life, who was a member of a group that was at PIR for a minute. I can't think of the name of his group. But anyway, him and I, back in '74, we started our own little company called Mills and Mills. Okay. And one of the young girls, and when we were signed at PIR as writers, one of the young ladies that was cleaning our rooms, the King family came through and was cleaning, you know, they cleaned up all the offices and stuff. And we heard her singing, and T said, man, I really like her voice, and we're going to do something with her. But then me and T broke up. Even though we signed her to Mills and Mills, I signed with PIR literally at the same time. And he went on with Mills and Mills and signed Bubbles. And we went into the studio and cut her first album, Bubbles. That's funny. Evelyn Champagne King. Shane.
Evelyn Champagne King.
Wow. But that's what we used to call him, Bubbles.
I was just about to, okay, that was a nickname you guys gave him. Because okay, because see, like he the one, he wrote and produced Shane.
Yeah, but I also cut the track. Me and Instant Phone cut the track for Shane.
Ooh, I had no idea.
Yeah, and I did the rhythm chart, and also I wrote a song and did the rhythm chart for that. And the show is over on that first album for Evelyn. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so at the same time, I had signed with PIR, and because Gamble heard those arrangements I had been doing for Bunny Sigler on Carl Carlton and Johnny Nash. I was writing all of Bunny Sigler's horn arrangements at that time. So he asked me to write something for MFSB, which I did. And that most of that stuff, early stuff, is on that MFSB Philadelphia Freedom album.
Okay, so that's the album that you know, because I noticed there was a second wave of MFSB.
Yes.
And a lot of people may not know this. For diehard purists like myself, so when I think of the first wave of MFSB, I think of the core members was Earl Young, Ronnie Becker, and Norman Harris. That's the core guys. We can name Lenny Pacula and all those guys, but those were the core guys.
Yeah.
And they left in late '75. And then comes
late '75. They started their own label called Golden Fleece.
Golden Fleece, which was, I believe, a subsidiary of Philadelphia.
Yeah, it was a subsidiary. They didn't do too much, but you know, they had a couple of hits outside of Golden Fleece as producers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here we go. 1976, the second wave, I like to call it, of MFSB, and you're like a central part of that. So what was it like, you know, coming behind Norman Harris, man? Like, because you're pretty much replacing him in a sense.
Well, actually, who I wound up replacing.
Not Norman
Bobby
Harris.
Martin.
Bobby Martin, I apologize. Right. Norman Harris, the good song.
Yeah, I became their live conductor and producer, basically, you know, with that Philadelphia Freedom album and the Mysteries of the World album, you know. It was challenging at first because, you know, I was so young and I'm not quite sure why Don Ronaldo chose me. He was the lead contractor of the orchestra and everything. But for whatever reason, we were able to keep it going. You follow me, Philadelphia Freedom and then the Mysteries of the World album. You know what I'm saying? Which really that particular song was a big hit over in Europe and France. You know, and so we were able to keep it going because what happened with MFSB is this. The sound that Bobby Martin and Tom Bell were these incredible arrangers, you know, that really changed, like Tommy gave a beauty to arranging R&B songs that really hadn't been heard prior to him, you know what I'm saying? And Bobby Martin, he was able to add an extraordinary sounds and horns and strings together in a way with little jazz bits here and there that really helped all the artists and develop that early Philadelphia sound. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so when Bobby left, and Baker Harrison Young left, and Tommy was gone for all intents and purposes, because by then he was doing his own stuff with, you know, the Spinners. He had left doing the stylistics, all that stuff he did with the stylistics.
He would do from the stylistics, Delphonics.
Well, early on the Delphonics, of course, yeah. So for me, like I was saying, I you know, it was a challenge, you know, but it lasted for a number of years. We kept it going, you know. And the key thing, what most people don't know about MFSB, is that early MFSB was also the Harris Machine, Norman Harris's album, the Harris Machine. It was Vince Montana. It was the South Soul Orchestra. You know what I'm saying? They cut all those records for South Soul Records. You know what I'm saying? It was the Ritchie family.
The Ritchie. I was just trying to think of the Ritchie family. Yeah.
Well, most people think of the girls, the ladies in the Ritchies, you know, but it was the same orchestra. It was the same members. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it was an amazing group of musicians. You know, even after Baker Harrison Young left, you know, other musicians came in, and Sugar Bear playing the bass, Dennis Harris on the guitar, you know, Collins on the drums, you know, and they kicked it right on off. I mean, the first major stuff they did with MFSB, that new rhythm section, was that first Lou Rawls album with You'll Never Find, you know, and they also, you know, so they kept it going. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt.
So yeah, it was a transitional point, like you're saying, you know, and for
the sound definitely changed. It seemed like
for me, Billy always liked my synthesis, and he would tell me, Dex, you know, whenever you're writing your arrangements, you should add synthesis somehow because it makes you different. Right. So, you know, Billy Paul's telling me to do this, and I said, okay.
Oh, you wrote some joints. You wrote some classes with Billy Paul.
Hey, I know that, right?
I go in and lay tracks with my synths, or after I wrote strings and horns for something, and rhythm charts for something, and it seemed to work out over the years, you know.
Okay, now, throughout all my years of studying Philadelphia International, I never heard anybody ever talk about, like, why did, you know, Norman Harris and Ronnie Baker and Ariel, why did they leave? You know, why did they end up, you know, leaving Philadelphia International?
Well, because don't forget, they were musicians. They were getting paid through the union. You know, even when Norman was writing arrangements for Kenny, you know, he was getting paid that. They wanted to make some money, and it was really all about the money. You know, their names had become popular, you know what I'm saying? So they decided, look, we'll do our own label. You know, we're going to go out and we're going to try to make some money, you know? And that's really what it was all about. With Bobby Martin, it's basically the same way. Even though Bobby Martin was doing productions for Gamble and Huff, don't forget, it was Philly International Records, was Gamble and Huff at the top, you know, and every song they wrote would be like generally the first singles. You know,
yeah, it seemed like that. Like I don't think I had a conversation with me and Cam was talking about that.
A single here or there, but Bobby was like, man, I can't get a single. So don't forget Bobby Martin. After he left PIR, he showed that he was a
LTD.
great producer and writer. I mean,
Yeah.
LTD
And the Manhattans.
Manhattans. Let's just kiss and say goodbye.
Yeah.
You know, Bobby Martin was
Yeah.
as good as anybody else when it came to production. You know,
Yeah.
so and his arrangements, of course, were like
Beautiful.
dude.
So what was
Me and Mrs. Jones.
Yeah,
So,
sir.
and then add about 50 more after that, and he was like such a great mentor to me. He actually would look at some of my charts and say, "Dex, you going to voice your chords that low?" And I was, and I say, "Should I move them up a third?" Yeah, move them up a third.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah.
That
And let me
classic.
tell you something. The song Backstabbers, right? Bobby Martin wrote the strings. I'm sorry. Bobby Martin wrote the horns. Tom Bell wrote the strings.
I had no idea
Oh,
Tom Bell
man.
had something to do with that. So I thought Anthony Jackson played
Well, he played, no, Anthony Jackson was playing bass.
the bass.
His big record with the OJs that he's a co-writer on is Money, Money, Money. That's
How do I
Anthony Jackson.
forget that? I apologize. Because he does the dum 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 and for the love of money.
Right, for the love of money.
Yeah. My apologies. I'm getting old. So look, let's back it up. Let's back it up a little bit, Dexter, because 1976 was a huge year. Like I said, you guys dropped, you guys dropped a lot of classic music. But this album, I feel like a lot of people, I feel it did very well. But I feel like this album was a very pivotal moment for this particular artist and this particular group. And I believe you know who I'm talking about. And I'm talking about the one and only Michael Jackson and the Jacksons. That first album, Epic Records / Philadelphia International. And I believe you produced and wrote 2 songs on that. So talk about working with a teenage Michael, at this time. And I want you to talk about it, but talk about like working with a young Michael Jackson before he really just took off. What was that like? And matter of fact, how did that come together? How did you get involved with that first Jackson's album?
Well, what happened was when they signed with PIR, the next thing I knew was that Kenny called me into his office and he said, "Listen, the Jacksons want to work with you." And I was like, "What?"
I know you was flattered, man.
I said, "Wait a minute, why?" Well, they like your stuff, you're different, and they were. So it turned out that on both of those albums, I became their arranger for any of the songs they wrote. I arranged, and also helped them produce along with other people, But the problem is that Michael's voice was changing, but the brothers still wanted him to carry all the leads, So, and he was a little, taken aback as far as what to do with his voice early on, but we were able to manage, getting them in a sound that helped him develop his voice. You know what I'm saying? Like some of the stuff I did with them that they wrote, I really liked the sound of his voice because he was trying different things, and they were too. Like Blues Away and Different Kind of Lady. We tried different.
I love
things,
that song.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
And
sir.
yeah. So and then by the end of the second album, his voice was there. And I thought we were going to do a third album, and I wanted to do some really funky dance stuff with them, And that's exactly what they did when they left. They kind of like did that first group album with Shake Your Body,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Destiny, the Destiny album.
Yeah. And I have a friend that can't think of his name right now. Keyboard player.
Greg Philagaines.
Yeah. Me and Greg talk
Philagaines.
about that all the time. About how they really were able to stabilize and let his voice grow those few years they were at PIR.
I mentioned those albums because, you know, a lot of times when we think of Michael Jackson, or even when we think about the Jackson 5, I tend to get a feeling that a lot of us forget about that. I like to call it like that bridge between him going from a young child sensation to an adult sensation, because it seemed like it happened so fast. You know, you got he's doing Dance Machine, and then next thing you know, a couple of years later, he's doing Off the Wall. But people forget about those. I feel like sometimes people forget about those two albums because there was a lot of classics on that. And I remember seeing you and your son. And is this Pops? Is this it? Was that him in the video? It's on YouTube. It's floating around on YouTube.
Pop Wansel?
Yeah. Is this because I believe it's you, your son, and like the Jacksons in the studio in Sigma Sound.
He did a video that
it's like 1976, 77, something like that. But it's been floating around on YouTube for like a decade now.
Yeah. Can I step away for a second?
No problem. Go ahead.
Give me a second. You and Cam talk for a second.
All right, I'm gonna edit it.
What's up, y'all? How y'all?
Hey, what's going on, Pops, man? Hey, it's an honor. I gotta put something together with you, brother. Like, for folks who don't know, man, this is Pops Wansel, man. This one of the dopest producers, man, in the past this past decade, man. I'm talking about he produced from damn near everybody, man. It's an honor to have you on, man. Like, how was it, man? You know, growing up, you know, like I remember, like I was just talking with Dexter. I was talking with your pops, and there was a video that been floating around on YouTube of a little boy in the studio with Mr. Wansel. Is that you?
That's not me.
Who is that kid? Because in the comments, like, I don't know. I was born in '78, so I don't know who that is.
That's not me. That's I wasn't born yet.
That's Christopher.
That's my older brother, Chris.
Oh, that's okay. So he is related. So that is his son. That is your brother.
You were close. Yeah.
I was close. Okay. But everybody was saying that was you.
No, I wasn't. I was born in '88.
88. I was 88 too.
Oh man, y'all around y'all the same age, man. I'm thinking me and you was around the same age.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Pop. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was 88.
Okay. Nah, that's dope, man. So what was it like, you know, real quick, man, because I want to get your pops back on, man. But what was it like, man, like growing up in the Wansel household, man? Like, how did you get involved in music, man? Did you initially pick up, you know, your chops from your dad, or was it something that took, you know, something that was delayed until you got a little older? How did it all come about?
No, it wasn't very delayed at all. It was pretty innate and second nature, like almost right away. My school, when I started kindergarten, my elementary school was like 7 blocks away from Philly International.
Oh,
on 309 South Broad Street. So I started just going to the studio with him after school a lot, and that's when I kind of picked up actually creating,
no doubt,
making beats and programming and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I just feel like I understood what good music was supposed to sound like pretty early. It was a musical household, you know, between him making music and me having all my older siblings. There was a lot of us under one roof.
Okay.
Everybody had different like musical tastes, and just was.
Now was it like, you know, because a lot of times you have like right here, this Cam Jones, you know, and he's the son of Shirley Jones. I don't know if you guys have ever met, who's right beside you.
No, I done heard a lot about him. I feel like I done crossed paths, but it's good to meet you, bro. Like,
yeah,
for real,
great to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely, dog.
Yeah, man, you guys should link up, man. You guys should. I'll let you guys talk off air, man. But you know, I have conversations with Cam all the time as far as like being the son of an artist, man. And you know, did you truly appreciate, man, like the contributions of your father, man? Like, did you realize like how big of a deal he was, man? You know, as a young kid, when did it hit you? Like, damn, my dad didn't work with the Jacksons. My dad didn't work with, you know, Lou Rawls. My dad didn't work with OJ. You know, all these dope artists, man. When did it hit you?
It didn't. It didn't hit me till I was really a teenager, and when I saw that the dudes that I looked up to, myself, Kanye, and the Just Blaze, those dudes was like,
yeah,
you know, how they felt about him made me realize, like, you know, oh shit, this is who he is, and I was really into sampling by that time too. So I would be sampling things, just and not even intentionally sampling them because he was a part of it, but realizing that later on I sampled something that he was a part of, that he played on, that he arranged, that he produced, that he wrote.
That was up.
I think when I started to really dig into the crates and study sampling and learn about music and breaks and stuff like that, is when I really realized how pivotal of a part he plays in that, in a lot of other producers' careers and influences.
Yeah, man, that's legendary, man. Like, you know, because when I a lot of times when you have an artist that's a producer or a singer, sometimes I feel like they kind of shy away from that. They don't want to go follow after those footsteps, and that's one of the things I love about Cam, man, because Cam embraces that. Do you know, what do you think about that as far as, you know, being the son of an artist, man? Do you feel like you always embrace that, or that took some time?
I don't know. I say it took some time. You know, I didn't use my last name for a long time.
Right.
I didn't use my last name until I had my first #1 record, and then right after that, I started using my last name.
Now, what was the first #1? Was
my first #1 record was
Your Love?
Yup. Thanks. You know.
Your Love? Which one?
Yeah, it was Your Love by
okay.
Nicki. Yeah, and then after that, I was credited on that record as Pop Justified, and after that, I started using my last name, Wansel.
Oh, yeah, right.
Because I wanted to. I don't know what it was. You know, young.
Why do y'all do that though? Like, I don't. Hold up. I never. Like, I be telling Cam, man, like, you know
what it is. And
it's different. It's different with everybody.
Explain it to me. I'm trying to get an understanding.
It's a thing in this business that I see, that I saw a lot of with other people, and I learned from a lot of other people's mistakes. And I just saw the spite and the entitlement, just a lot of other shit that we could get into and talk about all day long. But I didn't want nobody to be able to say that they did anything for me for any other reason other than that they had to, because I'm good at what I do.
Right.
I didn't want to hear nobody be like, yeah, well, you know, I did this for your father. I did this because of this. And not that it was such a big deal with him, but there were just a lot of boxes and that I checked off, and a lot of I's that I had to dot and T's that I crossed.
Right.
Several of them, and just that one of them was me not using my last name in the beginning as well, to get to a point to where I could really have control and not owe nobody. Not talking about my dad, but just other people, because in the beginning, we tried a lot of things. He gave my CDs and my demos and things I was working on to a lot of people. And you know, some weren't receptive. I maybe I had a little more development to go through. And I had a lot to learn, but it was through those experiences that I said, I wonder if I start, because when I start going hard and I start doing this my own way, and I come into this as this damn near, you know, unknown figure, how will it go?
Right.
And there was, like I said, there's a lot of other layers to it, but yeah, it was important for me to get to a place. It was important for me to get to a place on my own so that I could take some control and go back and not only protect myself, but protect my dad moving forward too, and that's a whole other story. But
for sure.
Can you kind of relate to that, Cam?
Yeah, I got a quick question for you, Pop. How was it being able to balance? You know, coming from a legend, a lot of times people automatically assume that you'll kind of have peaches and cream road, like peaches, you know, everything just laid out for you. How was it being able to balance and you know, make sure that you pave your own lane instead of, you know, just piggybacking? And, you know, was it easy being able to balance that, or did you come across any conflict?
Not necessarily conflict, but I just found myself explaining to people a lot of the times, like, it's not what you think.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
I can understand why they would assume.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think of a catalog like my father's and you think that he was, you know, fucking well off somewhere. And it's just not how business was done when he was doing
it. Yeah, I can relate, bro. Like,
you know, that's just not how it was done when he was doing it. And so now, like I said, that was another thing. I'm going to get myself to a point where I'm so respected, and I'm so I'm so kind of like bulletproof within my business, in all aspects of my business, that I don't have to go through the things that my dad did. And he don't have to go through them no more moving forward, because he's still active. Right? He's still a performer. He's still an arranger. He's still a producer. He's still a writer. And now we do things a different way. Okay. So me not using my last name in the beginning, that was the biggest reason why, because I wanted to accumulate and achieve as much as I could, and then throw my last name in there, because guess what? There is still people at that time that was active in the business that kind of like did shady shit to him, or, you know, back in them times, and they had to see me, and they had to see me win. Some of them people had to do business with me, and it wasn't like, and they had to do real business with me.
Yeah. They go have to.
It's not cheap business.
They go have to come correct.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So it was like I said, it was a lot of little different variables to that. It had nothing to do with me being, you know, embarrassed or ashamed of my name. I mean, what a fucking name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse my language, but
nah, you good.
That's why right after I put that name back on, I wanted to continue. Hope I, you know, can continue.
Nah, brother. I'm looking at this catalog, man. I'm looking. I'm like, damn. I did not realize how many. I thought I knew the catalog, man. I'm just like, damn, man. You gotta now. As I look at this catalog, man, I'm talking about. I mean, you didn't wrote for Lisa, Kara, Jason Derulo, Tory Lane. Like, when you came into the game, brother, and I could go on and on, man. We could go Nicki Minaj, Jesse, we could go on, Jennifer Lopez, Big Sean. When you came into, you know, when you came into the game, did you always have this mindset that I'm going to work across a multitude of different genres, or, you know, because you come from a R&B, you know, your father's an R&B legend.
Yeah, and no, I came in thinking that I was a rap producer and a rap writer, and that was very short-lived. I still do it to this day, but it was just limited because my style of producing and writing is musical. Right. And there ain't too many rappers that understood the melodic rappers did, and those are the ones you see on my resume, the ones that could kind of, you know, sing and understand melody.
Like Tory Lanez.
And Wiz, and you know, so my association, not my association, but just like the amount of like my success rate with rappers are lower because, you know, I lean toward melodic rappers, and what that did was,
man, fuck that rap shit, man. The money is at in them pop records, man. The pop records and them art, the good kissers, the you know what I'm saying?
There's a big pay difference, but you know, for me, it's just about.
I'm just playing. No.
But not for nothing. Rap is a shitty business.
It is, man. I'm just being honest, man. I ain't.
No, it is.
I'm gonna keep it 100, man. I'm looking at the hits that you done did with these R&B and these pop artists.
Really?
And this shit is ridiculous, man. This shit is crazy. We talk about Marvin and Chardonnay. We talk about Your Love. We talk about good. This is ridiculous, brother.
It wasn't a path that I expected. I thought, you know, well, one, coming in with Nicki, I didn't know. I knew she'd be big. I didn't know how big she'd be.
Right.
Not surprised, but just, you know, you never know. But yeah, man, the pop and R&B thing just came because I understand music. And
you feel like having a, you know, with your father being Dexter Wansel, you feel like that kind of gave you like an edge, you know, gave you like not an edge, but an advantage over a lot of, you know, producers, you know, especially in the genres that you know, that you move in.
Well, definitely gave me an advantage just in having someone there that knows and understands the history,
right,
and the essence of, you know, R&B. But I guess you could consider that an advantage. Yeah.
I don't feel like you should be. I feel like you should be unapologetic about it. Like, I don't feel like.
Nah, yeah.
Yeah, because you took, and I could be wrong, but you took some time thinking about that. But I'm like, hey, brother, your pops passed the baton off, and you ran with it. That's how I look at it. Like, I say the same thing about you too, Cam. You know, you could have, you know, we know where the talents come from, but you could have just been like, I'm gonna be a, you know, a carpenter, or I'm gonna waste it. So I don't feel like you should have to apologize for that. Not saying that you are, not saying that you're doing that, but I'm just saying, I just feel like sometimes, man, guys like you two, you know, I personally feel like you guys should embrace it, you know, because what came through you guys, man, you know, as you guys continue to pursue you guys, you know, your careers, man, you guys are carrying on the tradition, carrying on the legacy, and the culture. We appreciate that. I just want to say that.
Well, I appreciate that, and
I know I can be long-winded sometimes. I apologize, man.
No, it's all good. I'm just a little tired. That's all.
It's all good.
But
yeah, bring Pops back in here, man. I got some questions I want to ask him, man.
You good? Okay, yeah. Well, I appreciate y'all, man, for real.
Hey, look. We gotta link up, brother. We gotta link up, man. I would love to do a whole interview because, again, man, I'm a huge fan of your work as well, man. So thank you, brother. Thank you for dropping in, man. I really appreciate it, man. And God bless you. And just continue killing the game, man. Continue doing what you're doing, brother.
I appreciate it. I look forward to, you know, I got a lot coming next year, and it's gonna be a good year. He's got a lot coming next year too. So
no doubt.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate y'all, man.
Hey, Pop, appreciate you, bro.
All right, Pop, you take it easy, brother. Peace out.
You family, bro. Be good, bro. Yes, sir.
Man, that was dope. The one and only Pops Wansel, man. The catalog speaks for itself. So look, Dexter, thank you so much, man. Because I really wanted to ask you. I was gonna mention your son in the interview, but shoot, we pretty much you know, killed two birds with one stone. So thank you, brother. Thank you so much. But I wanna go back to you, you know, and I don't want to hold you because, again, you know, I'm representing that Philadelphia International, and I can get on my nerd. I can get on my music nerd thing. I'm gonna try to reel it back a little bit, you know, because I know a lot of these questions that I'm asking, these are personal. This is personal because I'm really a fan. I'm really a fan of the music. So I want to talk about you releasing your first album, Life on Mars, 1976. What led you to releasing a solo album? You know, did you always look at yourself as an artist? Because, you know, for years you've been in the background, and then
No.
Talk about that a little bit.
What happened was when I started writing those arrangements and writing songs for PIR, they said, we're going to sign you to an in-house contract. We're going to make you an in-house writer and producer. And so I said, great. And then,
Now, who said that, Mr. Gamble?
yeah,
Okay.
Gamble and Huff and the guy that was in charge at the time. I can't think of his name now. But anyway, so they developed it. They made this contract. And of course, in 74, you know, I even without having signed it, I started working, you know, on a lot of stuff in the studio for them as a producer and arranger and composer.
Right.
So I signed the contract, and the lawyer they had me talk to was saying, you know, they're saying this is an artist contract too. And I'm saying, well, what am I supposed to do? And he said, well, you're, you know, they'll talk to you about it. So I just signed it, you know. And they said they wanted me to do an album, and so I did. And initially, what I did was, you know, I explored a lot, you know. As a kid, I loved looking at the stars.
I loved the album cover. I love that first album cover, man.
Part of my life grew up on a farm, and then my other part was in the deep North Philly, you know.
Bryn Mawr, Philadelphia, the Bryn Mawr neighborhood.
I was born in Bryn Mawr, but I lived in North Philly, which was a black projected area, you know.
Okay.
And so I wanted to experiment, and that album allowed me to experiment in ways that I kind of couldn't do initially with other artists.
Right.
You know, initially I had to kind of like stay away from experimental stuff, you know, like the stuff I did on Anthony White, or I did with Lou early on, or
forgot about me and Khalif was just talking about that Anthony White album.
Yeah.
That was a very, very, very slept on album, man.
Yeah. Well, I liked Anthony a lot, but Kenny had decided to sign Teddy. So he wanted to focus on Teddy and he let Anthony go. But I like that album too.
Because I believe he only did one album.
Sessions for that album, and I did a total arrangement and production of a cover song. Can't remember the name of it.
The Barry Manilow one.
Could It Be Magic?
Could It Be Magic? Oh, man, I love that song. That's the Barry Manilow song.
Yeah. So
I love that song.
Yeah, I really liked his voice, and I loved his texture, but you know,
great voice.
You don't hear no synthesizers or experimentation on my production arrangement of that.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, and this is what I'm, you know, when I think of the second wave of Philadelphia, man, I really feel like you're like the, you know, like one of the cornerstone pieces of that, because you did not hear a lot of synthesizer, ARP, Odyssey, different type of, you didn't hear a lot of that in the pre, you know, you didn't pre Norman Harris. Well, I'm not going to say pre, but you know, you didn't hear a lot of that during the Norman Harris, Ronnie Baker, Earl Young era of MFSB, and it seemed like the sound changed when you joined.
They had done it. Listen, they had done it, and Bobby Martin's arranging and conducting him live. They had done it as good as it gets, you know, for 40-piece orchestra, you know. So I had to do something different, and so I did.
No doubt. Nah. When you look back on those years at Philadelphia International, man, did you ever realize that that Philadelphia International will be this iconic? You guys are celebrating, 50 years, I believe, of this year. Would you ever thought that, man, look what we have accomplished? Did it ever dawn on you, like, man, I can't believe I was a part of that? And not just a part of that, I was a major central piece of that,
Well, a lot of, I was honored to work with all of those artists and musicians, I went to a funeral today, and it was for an engineer that worked at PIR named Michael Tarzia. He was
That's
the
Joe
son of
Tarzia.
Tarzia.
Y'all, man, sorry.
And Joe and Cecilia were there.
Sorry to
And,
hear that.
we talked a little bit, Joe Tarzia's Sigma Sound Studios was one of the greatest recording studios in the U.S.
That's a fact.
Man,
at one
without
point,
question.
That's a
Without
fact.
question.
And all the PIR stuff was done at Sigma. The South Soul stuff was done at Sigma. Other groups would come in from around the world. David Bowie,
Eddie Kendricks,
Madonna. They would all come to Sigma. And Michael, as a kid, grew up at Sigma, watching his father. His father is one of the great engineers and helped to create the CD. Joe Tarzia helped to create the compact disc back in the day. And so, it brought back a lot of memories. And the most important thing that I felt today was I was honored to be there with them, to be with those artists, not just at PIR, but at the Uptown too, to be able to hear them and to watch them and to be inspired by them, one of the ladies I used to walk from the Uptown to the VPA club when I was like 9 years old was Billie Holiday. I used to get to hear her sing, right before she passed away. She would call my mom, and my mom would get dressed up, and I would say, "Mom, where are you going?" She says, "Well, Billie just called." I said, "Oh, okay."
Wow. That's amazing.
I got to work with, the original Impressions had two brothers and Jerry Butler. And I was their little gopher at the Uptown. And then as a producer at PIR, Gamble walks Jerry into my office and says, "Jerry, I want to introduce you to Dexter." And Jerry looked at me and he said, "Dexter, you still ain't combing your hair?" Because I used to be his little gopher, as a kid, for him and Curtis and the rest of the Impressions. And the same way with all the artists that were on the King Records tour. It wasn't just James Brown, but there were other great artists on that tour,
Right.
When the Ike and Tina Turner tour came through, that was one of my last gigs at the Uptown, was to work that show. And, just all of the great musicians that sat on the stage and played behind all the groups that would come through for years at the Uptown, all the jazz shows. And then I was there. I got to see a lot of that, and then at PIR, I got to learn how to work with artists, learn their voices, learn their instruments, figure out how to develop sounds that would go along with their sound. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Today I just stood there and I was thinking,
I'm like literally living vicariously through you right now. Like just hearing these stories, I can just picture it. Like I can just imagine just being around all this talent, man. It's amazing just hearing these stories.
So I think, well, maybe you feel what I feel.
No, I do.
As a kid growing up, all along, to be a part of music and those wonderful artists and great musicians and engineers and people that really wanted to make music in ways that others could enjoy. I'm honored to be a part of it.
So I meant to ask this question earlier, and if you jump in whenever you want, Cam.
For sure.
I want to ask the brother Dexter this, man. Like I said, when I think of you, I think of one of the greatest keyboard players, man, of the 70s, man. And who are some of your influences? Who are some of the peers? Who are some of the guys that rivaled you, you know, some of the guys that influenced you during that time, you know, whether it's this guy, that guy, or, you know, who was some of the guys that you was like, man, he working with something over there, you know?
That's tough. You know, growing up as a kid, my stepfather, Clinton Woods, would play a lot of jazz, and I would listen to jazz keyboardists growing up. And I think they influenced me subconsciously, even though you know, my main instrument was the cello and the flute, but I would use keyboards, you know, to write and to cut tracks, you know. And as far as being a keyboardist, being influenced by other keyboardists, yeah, I mean,
or inspired, maybe not influenced. Let me say inspired. Maybe inspired.
My first keyboard that I played was the organ. That, you know, like I was saying, Dave Babe Cortez and Doc Bagby, you know, were my first mentors. And then I met Jimmy Smith on one of the jazz shows. You know?
Ooh, Jimmy Smith.
And he showed me.
Jimmy Smith.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
He was a jazz organist, you know. Then later on at the Aqua Lounge in Philly, and back in '74, I met Herbie Hancock, and he had just released an album called Headhunters.
Oh, the Headhunters! Oh my
yeah.
goodness! I'm sorry, I couldn't hold
that album kind of inspired me to take a look at other things, you know, and to use more synthesis, because, you know, he had this doctor. I can't remember the guy's name, but he also had an ARP 2600, and I would sit down and talk to him, the guy that was programming the ARP for Herbie.
Right.
And I would sit down and talk to him, and I would talk to Al Perlman too about programming the 2600. And so that inspired me, you know.
It's a great time. When I think back, you know, I think of all the artists. It was just like it was a great time, man.
Yeah. I mean, every record.
Chick Corea, you know.
You ever hear Bernie Worrell?
What's that?
Bernie Worrell. You ever hear?
Yes, of course. The Funkadelic Parliament.
He inspired me a lot too.
Bernie Worrell, yeah, that's my guy.
And sine waves and
Larry Dunn
on the Moog, and I talked to him on a couple of occasions. You know,
I
was with George Clinton a couple of years ago down in
Bernie.
I went down to see the was it Louisiana or Tennessee?
No, Mr. Wansel, you said Bernie or Larry Dunn?
No, I said I was with George Clinton a couple of years ago, you know, down at his studio.
Right, okay.
And we were talking about Bernie. I went down there to see a full eclipse, full solar eclipse. And I went to his studio and talked with him. And Bernie Worrell kind of influenced me when I would use the Moog or the Oberheim for bass sounds that I would put on records and stuff. He kind of influenced me, you know, and I think he's really underrated, Bernie Worrell. I think he's really, I mean, because he really took that Moog and used it to help create a funk sound that a lot of groups use, you know, especially the bass sound and the sine wave sounds, you know. And so, yeah, he definitely influenced me. So, you know, anyone I listen to influences me. I'm trying to, you know, remember why I did certain things and where it came from.
I know that right.
So yeah.
I want to talk about this. You know, I want to fast forward a little bit. I want to, you know, many artists have sampled a lot of your music, and particularly, you know, Theme from Mars. You know,
Theme from the Planets.
Theme from the Planets. I'm sorry. Right. Theme from the Planets. Hurry Up This Way Again. Those songs have been heavily sampled. So talk about it a little bit. What was your what was your take on sampling when these rappers started to come out and sampling a lot of you guys' music? What was your initial take on it, and how do you feel about it now?
My initial take on it was that I love that people were sampling Theme from the Planets, and they've done it hundreds and hundreds of times. And then when in '92, when copyright kicked in and I started seeing a few pennies here and there, that even helped it. My whole thing with sampling is that, unfortunately, discriminatory practices in this country did not allow for many of us, especially in poverty-stricken areas of this country, to learn instrumentation or music or composition, and so sampling became an easy way to have music to use to create what you wanted to do or say. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think that it was a source of foundation of the hip hop era. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to use music that had already been recorded, and it doesn't cost you nearly as much.
Right.
Back then, it didn't cost you anything.
See, some people would hear what you're saying, and they would think that you're kind of taking a jab or at the hip hop artists. But when I hear you say that, let me finish. When I hear you say that, and most people who know exactly what you're talking about, they will realize that what you're saying is actually facts. It's actually facts. Because during that time, a lot of the programs, like you said, a lot of people forget that there was a time when you had a lot of different programs in the schools, recreational programs, even outside of schools, and they came, during the Reagan administration, different. I don't want to get too much into politics, but they removed those things. So I just want to piggyback on what you said, what you just said, because I feel like what you just said was very profound, and I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way. But what you said was that's something that actually took place.
Yeah, and so it started a revolution, as far as young people being able to get their voices heard in ways that they wanted, and messages heard, in ways that they wanted. And even to this day, Theme from the Planets is sampled,
to death.
And so I love it. I love that it's a foundation beat, for a part of one of our generations or a couple of our generations. I'm happy and I'm honored.
No doubt. I got two particular songs I want to talk about, and I want Cam to jump in on this because you worked with his mom as well, Shirley, and one of the songs is one of my favorite songs that you wrote and produced with your co-writer, Mrs. Cynthia Biggs, is "Hurry Up This Way Again." Can you talk to me about the making of that song? How did you guys come about putting that one together? Because I love that song to death, man. That's one of my favorite stylistic songs.
Well, what happened was, at that time, I had been asked to become the A&R director at Philly International, which I accepted because Gamble and Huff weren't talking to each other, which is for whatever reason they were doing their own things out there, And the stylistics came through, and I was told that I had to figure out how to do an album on it, And the one thing, Tom Bell had created such incredible music with the stylistics, Stop, look, and listen, You are everything. People make the world go round. God bless you. You make me feel brand new.
Yes, sir.
How was I going to top that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I get
said,
it.
You know what? I'm going to try to give them like a little beat, I'll give them something that they can, do something to, So I went in the studio with my basic band. We had a little band: Herb Smith, Pete Rudd, I forget who was on the bass at that time, but you know, I took in my synthesizers and we created a rhythm track that had some rhythmic changes to it, you know, and I wrote a melody and a sing-along called Hurry Up This Way Again, and Cynthia helped me write the words, you know, and that's how I got the album started. Then I started pulling other people in to help do the productions and stuff like that, you know.
Okay.
And I didn't write any strings and horns for it because I didn't want that, you know, on that song. I wanted it to be heavily rhythm section, vocalized with synthesis.
So listen, man, I want to piggyback because you just dropped the bomb when you said Cynthia. What stimulated the magic that you and Cynthia, you know, actually were able to uphold, and talk a little bit about the creation of Nights Over Egypt for me, if you don't mind, man.
The creation of what?
Nights Over Egypt. Sorry about that. Yep.
Cynthia and I, what happened was she was a writer at PIR, and Gamble had let her go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing so much stuff. Early on, I wrote all my own lyrics.
Right.
But I was doing so much stuff then. They had me actually going out and promoting on tours my album Life on Mars, and then it would fly me back in to produce and arrange projects that were at the label, you know.
Wow.
And so I just said one day, you know, I gotta have some help, and I asked Cynthia. She was studying to be a journalist, and I was saying, well, you know, you probably understand words and can put them together in a way that, you know, could really be profound, and would you work with me? She said, sure. And so she stayed, you know, she stayed at PIR, and we started writing songs together. I would come up with the music and melodies and maybe a sing-along, a few phrases here and there, and she would finish it up, you know, with words and lyrics. And so that's how we got started. Now with that song Nights Over Egypt, I was supposed to go to Machu Picchu and Giza, and Machu Picchu in Peru and Giza in Cairo, with Slippery Rock College. And weeks before we were supposed to go, the State Department here in the U.S. red flagged the trip. There was stuff going on. They were concerned about what was happening, especially in Egypt, with all the turmoil that was going on. And around that time, Anwar Sadat had been assassinated, and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So I decided I wanted to write a song about Egypt and Peru anyway. So I wrote a song called The Clouds of Machu Picchu and Nights Over Egypt. Two songs, Clouds of Machu Picchu and Nights Over Egypt. And that's how it came to be. I came up with the music and the melody and a couple of phrases, and Cynthia took the music and the melody, and she went into a library and studied up on Egypt. And so her lyrics kind of define what the song is about, you know. It's a historical look at Egypt, basically. Simple. It's a simple historical look at Egypt.
Right.
Yeah.
That's deep, man. I mean, y'all obviously made a classic. Dexter, I just want to say I appreciate you for that record and so many others, and, you know, just being, I feel like, you know, my PIR family, man. Anytime I talk to you, you always been so kind, man.
You know, that's not my favorite record with the girls, with your mom and your sisters.
I would imagine you did so many others.
My favorite record that I worked with them on, Shirley got really mad at me.
Really?
And what happened was I had cut the track in the wrong key. And the song is called Love Don't Ever Say Goodbye.
Love Don't Ever
Say Goodbye. I love that.
I got it.
I like
that as
that.
a question. I got that as a
Shirley
question.
was saying, we're out of here. And Cynthia said, well, look, let's just go get some lunch. And I personally went back in the studio, recut the drums, the bass, and the keys. And Miguel Fuentes was with me. My good friend Grover Washington was sitting in there laughing at me the entire
Whoa!
Yes.
Holy shit.
He was on that, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Grover Washington
So I said,
Jr.
"Come on, Grover, help
Yes,
me
sir.
out."
He was on that record, yeah.
So I played the basic melody for him, and he played sax around the melody. And when the girls came back from lunch, I said, "Okay, let's try it."
What was it like working with the Jones girls? What was that? You know, because you guys did a lot of, you guys did some great work with those girls. What was it like working with Shirley and the whole?
Are you kidding me?
Legendary Jones girls.
I got to tell you that they helped me in that part of my career more than you can imagine. Like anytime I had a project and I needed some help. And not just their project, but like one of my projects or a Lou Rawls project or something like that, they would come and help me. I'd say, listen, what are you ladies doing? Y'all want to do some background and you know, that kind of thing, and help me out and make some checks, you know. And every time they would come to the studio and say, what we doing? You know.
Hey.
And if you ever I did a song on one of my albums that is big over in Europe, and I have to add it to my show because when I was in London and Paris recently, people were screaming to hear "I'll Never Forget My Favorite Disco."
Man,
I love that.
That's another
that's
one.
Your mom.
I like that.
God, that's one of my favorites.
Singing.
Never forget.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that.
So,
Yeah. And then hold on, then it's got that.
How about how about
Man.
Lou Rawls, A Lover's Holiday?
Oh, that's another good one.
Classic.
That's them. And Brenda is talking to Lou
Yeah.
throughout the record,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. The
Yeah.
female.
Yeah.
I always wanted the female voice. That's
Yeah.
Brenda Jones.
That's Brenda.
That's the Jones girls, yeah.
So let me
I
ask
had
you
no
this,
idea. I thought it was just
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then when
woman.
I got released at PIR company Virginton Records signed me to do one album, and Shirley and Brenda and Valerie are doing all the background parts, and that one song they're doing the lead parts on. That's Captured. I was captured. I was caught.
Man,
Yeah,
y'all
that's
had some
them.
classic.
And that's just a few of the things that they helped.
Yeah,
So, what did I think? How did I feel about working with them? Well, it was about the best experience that don't get me wrong, I love working with all the artists, but they helped me more than I can. I can't thank them enough.
Crazy,
That's
man.
awesome. That's awesome.
That's crazy.
Well, like I said, you work with a lot of great artists at Philadelphia International, but who were some of the artists at Philadelphia International that you wish you could have worked with? Because you know, there's some guys. You know, were you able to work with everybody? You know.
Yeah. The only early on I didn't get.
And even outside of Philadelphia
I didn't get to
International.
work with the 3 Degrees because they were gone by '74.
Okay.
Yeah. I did some sessions as a keyboardist with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and of course.
Now this was with Teddy.
When Teddy was still with them, yeah.
Oh
wow.
And
what songs is those?
I don't remember.
Oh man, because I'm a diehard Blue Notes fan.
I worked on all of Teddy's albums.
Yeah, right.
Executive producer of his TP album.
The TP album, yeah.
And when he left PIR and started his Teddy Bear Productions, and he signed I can't remember their names. 2 artists that I did the productions for him, oh man, Miles J. I've Been a Fool for You.
I've been a fool for you. Yeah,
Oh man,
you gave
I like
me
that
a
song.
run around.
Cut the tracks,
I like
you know?
that song.
We did that for Teddy, you know, and
Well, hold up. That was going to be for Teddy.
that was for his company, Teddy Bear Productions. He had signed a female artist and what's his name again?
Miles J.
Miles J. Yeah, he had signed them and asked me to come in and help him there. You know,
Wow.
Grover did the same thing with me. You know, he had me produce and write songs for the teenagers he signed and called Pieces of a Dream.
Oh yeah,
Like
jazz fusion band.
5-4 and that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was dope. I like that song. Pieces of a Dream is a classic.
Yeah.
That title song. So I want to ask you, as we get out of here, you know, just so much great memories when I think of Philadelphia International. So many great artists that walked through those doors at Sigma Sound and 309. But in 2010, the Philadelphia International headquarters burned down. And what do you think about that? Like, how did it, like, do you know the whole story of that? And what do you feel about that as far as Philadelphia International's legacy? You know, because I remember just driving by Broad Street and just seeing those blue letters on that building, and it just used to warm my heart. And it just kills me when I go to Philadelphia now and I just don't see that building, man. So what do you think about that whole situation? You know, could have been saved, or like, man.
There is actually a video of the guy that set it on fire, and he got caught. I can't tell you why it happened. You know, Philadelphia, that particular building, 309 South Broad, was also Cameo
Parkway. Yep.
Was Philly International Records. So yeah, I mean, I worked a lot with Dee Dee Sharp. You know,
Mr. Gamble's his wife.
Right, and she also was signed at Cameo Parkway, where she had her first big hit,
Mashed Potato Time.
Yeah, mashed potatoes. Yeah, and so it's a historical place. Chubby Checker did the twist there. You know.
Yeah.
So
I know Dick Clark. He was very closely associated with Cameo Parkway.
Yeah, to a great degree. Yeah, he was. But his studio was at 46 and Market. That's where he did his Dick Clark show, you know, from
American Bandstand.
American Bandstand, yeah. And so for someone to go in there and burn it down, why the person did that, I really don't know. But there's actually a video of him going in there and breaking in the glass of the front door, going, you know, that kind of thing. And it's unfortunate because that building had great history, you know, and I think it would have been a historical site, you know.
You don't, I mean, was it, you don't feel like they could have salvaged, you know, the building? That, like, was it that bad where they just had to tear, I mean, because it's sad, man, just driving by and all I can see is just the Gambling Huff sign on the street, and I'm like,
of course,
it tears me up.
Of course, they could have rehabbed it, but Kenny and the developers have decided to do something different, you know. So they're rebuilding, and I think it's going to be like a lot of stores and condos. That's what I think. You know, Kenny's in the real estate business. There, he has many properties in South Philly.
Right. Do you feel like that building not being there, that's, you know, that's one of the reasons why I feel like sometimes the history of Philadelphia International is not looked in the same light as Stax Records or Motown, because, you know, you go to Memphis, you can see the old movie theater, which is Stax Records. You go to Detroit,
see Hitsville,
West Grand Boulevard, you see Hitsville. But you go to Philadelphia, and where what once stood on 309 South Broad is just no longer there. So do you feel like it kind of hurts the legacy as far as like being able to preserve the culture and pass it on down to
Well,
generation?
I agree with you. I think that the architecture and the buildings where it all came out of are important as far as historical legacies are concerned. I agree with you. Yeah, I miss it. I think it's a sad thing.
No doubt, no doubt. Nah. I wish I missed that building. Like I said, I'm glad I was able to go there and take pictures, and I still have some of the pictures to this day. But you know, as we get out of here, I want to talk about you have a new single. So talk about this new single. I remember when I spoke to you on the phone. I don't know if you just is it ready to drop this year? You're going to drop it at the top of next year, but
no, the single's out there now. The video is out there. The single is called As One.
Okay, talk about that a little bit.
And it's a song about we're all struggling. You know what I'm saying? And we need to all hold on to our dreams,
right.
And to come together as one, because that's the only way we're going to get through what's facing us now, to me, because everyone, it's sort of like this. There's a new virus that ain't going nowhere. But then there are all the old viruses that ain't going nowhere.
Yeah,
and so as humankind, we're starting to die in greater numbers, and so we really need to come together as earthlings, as opposed to
dividing.
what cultures might want to do or see other cultures as, so. That's what the song is really about, and it features Terry Dexter, who's a wonderful vocalist,
great vocalist,
and an actress too. She's on that show, A House Divided. She's on that show, and it's from my album that's out there now, and the album is called
plug that album. Come on.
The Story of the Flight Crew to Mars. And each song, or each instrumental or song, is preceded by a vocal scene. Yeah, it tells a story. So you gotta listen to it.
When I look back at those Philadelphia international albums by you, it seemed like it always was like a space theme in a lot of those albums. Talk about that a little bit. Like, were you like a real huge like science fiction fan, or were you really into like astronomy, space, things of that nature?
Yeah, well, when I was a kid growing up on the farm, part of my life, it was a dark sky there. There were no lights, Actually, there was a year and a half that I lived with my great-grandparents, and they didn't have electricity. We only had candles, and oil lamps, and that was very different,
Right.
So the sky there was dark. You could see the stars and so clear. And then one night I saw a meteor shower, and it's not like, say, like last night I went out to look at the Geminids meteor shower, and there were, like a few little, meteors shooting here. Now I saw one big one, but imagine, like as opposed to 2 or 3 meteors every couple of minutes, imagine 15 or 20 meteors every minute. And it was like, I'll never forget that, And to this day, it inspires me to continue to look up. I take my telescope out to, I live near a state park, and it has an open area. I take my telescope out there all the time because the planets are very visible at night here, and planets like Jupiter and all of its moons, and especially Saturn. Well, Saturn's kind of moved away, but you can still see it, with a good telescope. And of course, the moon and the star clusters and some of the nebula, And I've always been interested in that. And, I think that's part of me is especially Mars.
Nah, that's amazing,
There's
man.
something
That's
about-
I always wanted to ask you that.
sure. I'm not quite sure what it is, but there's something
No
about
doubt.
Mars that has always intrigued me. Reading up on it, and the more they learn about it, the more they want to be there.
No
Yes,
doubt.
sir.
So,
Hey.
Your son produced. You know, you just had your son. What do you know? How do you feel about his success? You know, because he's killing the game right now. Like,
Well,
how do you feel about that?
yeah. I'm beyond proud of all of my kids.
Right.
We have children that are very successful in all that they do. We have a daughter that helps to run a patents firm, you know, and we have a son that is a CIA field agent. You know?
Okay.
We have a daughter that helps to administrate foster children.
Wow.
You know? Yeah, and so on, and we have a daughter who's in the pharmaceutical world, and she actually works with, now she's working with Honest, Jessica Alba's company, you know.
Wow.
And I couldn't be happier. I mean, Drew is a phenomenal producer and writer, you know. That stuff, his most recent stuff, say like Alessia Cara, and her #1 records, and Ariana Grande's big album. I mean, he's in a pop world, and that's a different world.
That's a different world. Yeah.
It really is.
Mhm.
You know?
Did you ever try to, like, you know, when he told you that he wanted to take this thing seriously and become, you know, get into the industry, did you ever warn him about some of the things that he should look out for? Like, you know, what was that conversation like?
Well, he learned early on that contracts can be unfortunate, you know, because he saw what I went through. Let me put it that way. And for him to go out as Papa Justify was brilliant. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because no one linked him, you know, to me until after his first #1 record.
Right.
You know? And he made it on his own and continues to this day, you know, working very close with some of the great artists out there. I think he just finished Lizzo's album. So when that comes out, look for his stuff on there, you know.
Hey, that's what's
And
up.
sometimes
Need to work.
I have to call his management just to say hi, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Cam, I know you run into that on occasion.
Hey, man. Yes, sir.
Are you serious?
Hey,
Hell
man.
nah.
It be like that.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Look,
That's crazy.
Mama Jones gonna drop in and make sure everything going good, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
You know, I
love it.
really had one of my favorite songs I've ever done. I did with your mother, and
Really?
it's called "Last Night I Needed."
I needed somebody.
Yeah, I
Oh,
needed
man.
somebody. That's one of my
Cam,
favorite songs.
you know all them songs, Cam.
And,
I love that record, man.
Yeah, that's a good one.
because it really tells a story of what happens in relationships when
Last night.
you're trying to make something work, and then you don't know what the other person is
Yeah,
doing, you know.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
also wrote a song with your mom and your aunts that also talk about that, and it's been sampled too, and it's called "When I'm Gone."
I
When
love
I'm
that.
gone. Oh, man. When
I believe
I'm
that's on the
gone,
first album.
Lipstick was on the
Oh.
wall.
Yeah.
Lipstick was on the wall.
Give it up for the legendary Jones
Yeah.
girls, man.
Yeah. And then my auntie, I believe it's my auntie Valerie that's got to step out on that one. I love that song, though, man. I really do. Yeah, man.
I love it
that
too.
record.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Yeah, salute. Hats off, Dex. I mean, one thing I noticed about you, man, is you very versatile, and it makes sense that you got, you know, the solar and everything going on, because you bring people. You got a way of taking people to different places with your, you know, your production, man. It's amazing, man. So
Yeah.
hats off. You know, you my
Songwriting,
PIR family.
arrangements. Yeah.
Congratulations on 50 years. I can only imagine the memories you have, you know, and as you continue to look back on everything y'all did at PIR, man. But I'm amazed. I learn something new every day. I learn so much in the interview. That's why I didn't talk much, man. I was just sitting here soaking it in. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, this was dope, man. This was awesome for sure.
Well, it's nice talking to you, Cam, and
Yes, sir.
continued success with what you're doing. You know.
Thank you, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really do. Means the most to me.
Well, Dexter, I want to go ahead and wrap this thing up, man. You got any last words, man? I do want to say it is, and that's an understatement. It has truly been an honor to be able to talk to you and pick your brain, and you know, just to hear these legendary stories, man, about, you know, arguably the greatest, one of the greatest music labels of all time, man. I really appreciate it, brother. Really do.
Well, thank you for having me, and and to all who may watch this one day, I hope all is well with you all, and I hope that we will all be good and we will all be well as time goes by.
Amen to that, bro.
Amen. No, that was great.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
We need that healing energy for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And thank you, Cam. Thank you, Cam, for helping me put this thing together.
Yes,
and you know, I know it's getting late, but thank both of you guys. You just continue doing what you guys doing, carry on the legacy. I look forward to listening to this new project. Can you say that one more time before we get out of here, Mr. Wansel? The new project and the new single. Before we get out of
The
here.
new album is called The Story of the Flight Crew to Mars.
Okay.
The new single is called As One.
No doubt. Y'all heard it. Go ahead and cop that, stream it, download it, however you can get your hands on it. Go get it, because it's coming from Mr. Wansel, the legendary Dexter Wansel. You know it's going to be nothing but fire.
I'm telling you.
All right, brothers. You guys take care. Thank you guys, man. Have a good night. Love you guys.
Much love, King. PIL family forever.
No doubt. Stay up. Good night.
Good night.
All right, fellas.